Okay, I think that we've come on to the start of the hour. So hello and welcome everybody. This webinar is sponsored by the Teaching Statistics and Health Sciences section of the American Statistical Association. My name is Lila Poisson and I'm the current section chair. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, and if you're not a current member of the section, I'd like to encourage you to consider joining. We host a number of activities throughout the year, such as these webinars, and we work to build a community of statistical educators who primarily work in health sciences settings. We also host the TSHS resource portal, so if you're in need of real-world data for your courses, we encourage you to head over there. So for more information about our section, we ask that you please visit our blog or website. And so on your screen are the 3 links for those locations: our website through the ASA community, our blog site, and our resources portal. So the format of the afternoon's webinar is that our speaker will be presenting for 40 to 45 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of discussion, questions, and answers. All attendees will be muted during the presentation, so if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Our speaker may choose to answer your question during the presentation or wait to the end of the presentation to answer that question. Again, we ask that you do not use the chat button since we will not be monitoring the chat window, but to please use the Q&A button to ask questions of the speaker. So today we welcome Thomas Braun from the University of Michigan. His primary area of research focuses on the design of Bayesian adaptive phase 1 clinical trials in oncology. Dr. Braun has also published methodology in the design of phase 2 trials and cluster randomized trials. And he recently has begun to develop study designs for investigating treatments for rare diseases. He has been a member of the Center for Cancer Biostatistics within the Department of Biostatistics. And he has also served as the primary statistician for the Bone Marrow Transplant Division of the University of Michigan's Rogel Cancer Center for over 20 years. Dr. Braun has taught numerous courses in the Department of Biostatistics, and he has been responsible for developing or recreating curriculum for 5 of those courses. Dr. Braun is the first departmental member to teach for the School of Public Health's online Master Public Health degree, and he continually strives to develop new approaches for teaching biostatistical concepts to non-biostatisticians. Today, Dr. Braun will be speaking about biostatistics for public health students and what benefits does a flipped classroom have. So thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Lila. Do you want to unshare yours, or do I just?
I think you just grab it, yes? Or do I stop? Stop sharing?
Yep, I will stop you by doing mine. Yep. All right.
There we go.
So let me pull up the Q&A, folks. All right. So again, thank you all for attending this talk and hearing about my experiences over the last, it's been 3 years, so a year for development, and then I've taught this class twice now. At the School of Public Health. So the format of my talk is going to tell you about how this class used to be for the first 18 years that I've been here at Michigan, what I did to change it, both in terms of the curriculum as well as the format of the class, and show you some examples of what I did with the students, and then show you feedback that I've gotten from the students and some monitoring of their activities. And then I'll talk about what I learned and what's going to happen for the future of this course. Whoops, I'm on the wrong slide. There we go. All right, so this class, Biostatistics 501, is a class required of all students who enter the School of Public Health to pursue a Master's of Public Health. So these are students in their first year of their graduate program. I have a companion course called 521, or I should say we do, that's taught by another colleague. And those 2 courses serve all of the departments except for biostatistics. The group that I serve are mostly students who come from either the Health Behavior and Health Education department or the Health Management and Policy department. Now, there are other departments across the university who have found our course and have asked their students to take it to get some training in statistics as well. So I get about 20 students from departments such as kinesiology, nursing, and dental hygiene who want to take my course. This group of students is extremely heterogeneous. It's usually between 170 and 200 students, so it's a large class. I will have students who have had many prior statistics classes and find this class rather simple and easy to do. I have students who haven't seen math since high school and maybe have been working since college and haven't really wanted to ever think about math again, and unfortunately here I am showing math to them. A number of the students, when they take the quantitative GRE score, they score below the 50th percentile. So I'm working to teach statistics to a crowd for whom math and statistics are probably not something that they have felt they have fully understood in the past. And I try to change that mindset. I'm still having trouble for you. There we go. So what did this class used to look like? So I got here in 1999, and in 2000, and then again in the mid-2000, 2013 or 14, I taught this class using the traditional format, and it was what we usually think about with this class. It was 2 90-minute lectures. It used to be two 120-minute lectures per week, with all the students in an auditorium, the professor at the bottom lecturing from PowerPoint slides, and the students taking notes. There was one homework assignment given per week. The questions came out of a textbook that the students bought. We had TAs who would grade the assignments for correctness with not a lot of input. And honestly, there was very little application to public health problems. These students also took a 60-minute computer lab every week in the basement of my building here. In that room, they were given an assignment, which used to be in SAS, and we moved to SPSS. But again, they were given all of the syntax and the code that they were supposed to use beforehand. They typed it in, they got results, and they were supposed to turn in what they found. Again, those were not popular at all. And so one of the things I wanted to change was that computing experience for the students. The primary focus from the lectures and the homework, again, was what you would expect traditionally. We spent a lot of time talking about how we derive formulas for test statistics and p-values, confidence intervals, and so forth. There was a lot of computing things by hand in the homework assignments, and we spent a lot of time looking in the back of a textbook, looking at cumulative probability tables, and trying to find p-values, which I don't necessarily think is a good skill to develop in this cohort of students. There was honestly little focus on interpretation of the results. Certainly we talked a little bit about that, but not enough, I think, for students to really leave us and use it in their jobs. There were a few examples applied to public health settings, which I think was not a motivating feature of this class for our students. And there was no examination of looking at public health literature and seeing where statistics actually appears in those manuscripts. I'm doing it this way. So I was given a chance by the dean's office here to completely redesign the course however I felt was appropriate. And at that time, the school was experimenting with this idea of a flipped classroom. And so I decided to give it a shot in this class. So the first thing I decided to do was I had to cut down the curriculum. And so I divided the class into 8 modules. And essentially there's 1 module each week. And so we started with study design and types of data. Again, case control studies, what a randomized controlled trial is, what are continuous outcomes, what are categorical outcomes. We then talked about how to visually and numerically summarize data. I spent a lot of time, an entire week, talking about sampling concepts. What's the idea of a sampling distribution, and where do samples come from? And realizing that my sample of data is not truth. It's just one possible realization of what might be the truth. We then move forward into what the normal distribution is and how it applies to the central limit theorem. And then we use those 2 concepts to move into the confidence interval for the mean of a single sample of data. Talk about confidence intervals and how they can be used for hypothesis testing. We move into p-values, and then we start to move very quickly into t-tests and ANOVA for continuous outcomes, chi-square tests with categorical outcomes, and then we finish with correlation and only simple linear regression. We don't move any further than simple linear regression. So I had to take a number of things out of this class, which there was a lot of disagreement among me and my colleagues as to how to do this, but what I did was I first got rid of paired t-tests. I found that a lot of students really didn't grasp the nuances between an unpaired and a paired t-test, although we as statisticians see the connections very nicely. It was getting lost in translation. 2-sample tests of proportions. Again, we like how that connects to a 2-sample t-test statistic. But again, I found that appreciation did not carry over to the students in this class. There is no looking for p-values in the back of a textbook. I don't even require a textbook. I do have a PDF of a textbook that I recommend, but p-values, we talk about what they are, how they're developed, but then all p-values are given to them by the computer. I had to completely remove the chapter we usually cover on probability. So no conditional probability, no discussion of statistical independence, and no moving on to Bayes' theorem and the ideas of sensitivity and specificity. No binomial distribution discussion when we get to binary data. The only distribution we really talk about in any level of detail is the normal distribution. And there is no formal computing in a statistical package in this class, although I changed that a little bit with the second incarnation of this class that I'll explain. Whoops. So I took stuff out, but what did I add? As I said, I spent a lot more time trying to get students to understand sampling variability so they could actually see what statistics is trying to do with a single sample of data. I moved to odds ratios when we talked about categorical or binary outcomes. Although typically in this class, we talk about a two-sample test of proportions and absolute differences. When you get to published research in public health, it's usually an odds ratio that they see in a manuscript, not an absolute difference. So I had to move to that concept, which is still a struggle for a lot of students. Folks like to talk about differences. They don't like division. So that is always a challenge. I then moved to find some more contemporary health data sets for the students to analyze. Our health management and policy students, a number of their classes use data from the Medical Expenditure Panel Survey, MEPS. So I culled some variables from that data set to use in my class. And the General Social Survey is another survey given to folks, and it produces a lot of categorical and binary outcomes. You know, how often do you go to musical events? How often do you go to see sports? What's your political affiliation, and so forth. Excuse me. As I said, there's no statistical package. Everything we do is in Excel, in Microsoft Excel, and therefore we can do everything in class on personal laptops. There's no need for a computer lab. At Michigan here, all students have laptops, so that doesn't seem to be a barrier so far. And Microsoft is freely available to all students here at the University of Michigan, so that doesn't seem to be a hindrance. I spent a lot of time looking at the American Journal of Public Health and starting in about 2010 and trying to find articles that actually use t-tests, that actually use chi-square tests in some contemporary public health problems. And again, is moving a lot in our field right now, trying to talk about confidence intervals first before we start talking about p-values, but we do spend time talking about p-values. So again, I had 8 modules. Each module spans a week. And so how did we do this? The lectures, again, were captured on videos. So I did very little lecturing in this class. It was all done during the summer in front of a camera. And so concepts are presented each week via 1 to 5 videos. I asked the students to watch the videos as many times as they can between Thursday and Sunday. And the reason that is the time span is because class starts on Monday at 10 a.m. And so before class starts, they are required to take a quiz that reviews the concepts from those videos. It's the only way we have developed so far that will actually make students watch the videos. And so it's a very low stake quiz. They are allowed to take the quiz 2 times within an hour. Again, 4 to 6 questions, each worth 10 points. Points are awarded for correct choices, and unfortunately, points are also subtracted for incorrect choices. And I'll get into that in a second here, how these quizzes worked and the challenges that it presented. Again, it was meant to be a low stakes first evaluation of knowledge of the students. In terms of the videos, again, we're told that research says that, you know, humans can handle videos of about 8 to 10 minutes before they really start to lose interest or focus. And so we tried really hard to make videos that kept within that window. And I show you here each of the 8 modules. You can probably see this, can't you, folks? It's getting in the way. So some modules have 5 videos, especially at the end of the semester. Early on, maybe only 1 or 2 videos. And some of them didn't meet our goal. Especially the first week. I introduced them right away to a video that was way too long on data visualization, and in the second reincarnation we fixed that so that that video was broken up. But for the most part, 8 to 10 minutes, multiple videos, students are expected to watch those. The video lectures themselves, I don't really like to look at myself on a camera, but again, our video lectures, when we record them, we have a fantastic studio now in the School of Public Health and an incredible staff that help us with all of this. I am recorded as I read my slides. They record me the entire time, and they also record the slides on a separate camera, and those two are spliced together. So every video starts out with my beautiful face, introducing the video, and then the video will move on to slides, PowerPoint slides, covering the topic. Here's an example from my regression slides. And they will go back to my face every once in a while, depending upon where they think things are going to work. So it's more than just recording my voice over a set of slides. They actually do record me in front of a camera, which was a challenge in itself, honestly, for someone who's not trained to do that. Now, the quizzes, a way to get students to watch videos and to assess their knowledge. At Michigan, we use Canvas as our platform for things, for creating a website for the class and maintaining materials. And so I made online quizzes in Canvas. So here's an example of a question worth 10 points. And again, these are not multiple guess questions with only one right answer. These are multiple choice, and I tell them that more than one answer could be correct. So I gave them 4 examples, and I asked, of these examples, which one would a 2-sample t-test be the way to analyze the data in that study? And so as they read through them, hopefully they can see that there are 2 right answers in the middle there, and a wrong answer at the beginning and at the end, because they deal with proportions and rates. So the question is worth 10 points. Canvas says, oh, you gave me 2 right answers, so they must be worth half of 10 or 5. And therefore, there's a negative penalty equal to 5, -5 for each of the wrong answers. And so I just walked into the class the first year and just said, you know, take these quizzes. And so students would take the quiz and they would think that perhaps it was these 2 answers. I told them that typically there were 2 right answers often in a quiz question. And so they might pick these 2 questions. And when they're done taking the quiz, Canvas simply says, sorry, that question is wrong. You got 0 points, which to the students meant nothing was right. So then they would go ahead and say a second chance, then it must be the other 2. And they would get 0 points. And then I would get an email saying, I think Canvas grades things incorrectly. I didn't get credit for the right answer in the first place. I thought it was wrong, and therefore I didn't pick it again. And so this is the platform. I would like to design things differently, but again, students like to be rewarded for things that are right and don't like to be penalized for things that are wrong. None of us do, right? So I didn't explain the quiz process well, and that's something I'll talk about that had to be fixed for the following year. So this was a bane of my existence the first time around. Now Canvas records the usage of these quizzes, so I can figure out how long students are spending on these quizzes. Again, they were meant to be low stakes and not take the full hour that I allot to them. But I was surprised. Again, here I have summarized across all 8 quizzes and all of the students in the class. So the students are represented multiple times in this bar chart. But boy, they were not spending very much time on these quizzes. You know, even after 5 minutes, we don't see a lot of quiz taking time. So again, I guess that's wonderful for their lives. I'm not sure that they were really taking the quizzes as seriously as maybe they could have. I could also look at when students were taking the quizzes. And so again, I show you a bar chart across all the quizzes and all the students, starting at midnight through the morning up to 11 a.m. and then to noon out to 11 p.m. And not surprisingly, students, if they're going to take these quizzes, are typically taking them in the PM hours, and they're doing them at 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe even at midnight. And this spike right here in the morning hours is mostly due to folks on Monday morning who are realizing that they're going to be in class at 10 a.m. and need to get that quiz taken. So again, I'd like a little more uniformity, some less spiking here at late hours and right before class. And I'll get to that discussion as well. I can also look at proximity to the deadline when students take these quizzes. I designed this class so that students could take any quiz and look at any material once the class started at the beginning of the semester. A lot of our students go to conferences and go to meetings, and so they know they're going to miss a week. They can do things ahead of time and get things done at certain deadlines. So some people are taking quizzes days before they're due, mostly because they were gone. But most students are going to take the quiz the day before it's due, not surprisingly, because they've been watching videos for 4 days straight. That's sarcasm. Focusing in upon that one day before the quiz is due, here's when students were taking the quiz. Again, seeing this uptick in quiz taking after dinner, late at night. Again, I'd like to push some of this activity back down here. Again, I didn't look at any of this information until the semester was over, and wished maybe I had taken some time to look at this after a few of the quizzes to help students maybe think of a better way to approach this class instead of doing things at the last minute. Whoops, jeez. I'm right there, all right. So they have watched my videos. They've taken a quiz. They walk in at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. What I did was I took the 200 students we have in this class and I divided them up into 5 sections. And those 5 sections occurred in different rooms. I led one of those rooms and I had 4 TAs, or what Michigan calls GSIs, graduate student instructors. And we met with our group in that room and we talked about a review problem that I had to develop. And then most of the class, they worked on data analysis. So they had a data spreadsheet, they had an analysis spreadsheet, and they were asked questions to apply the concepts that we had just covered. They can work alone, they can work in groups, they are left to work however they wish. The assignment is designed to be done by the end of class. So we have 80-minute classes. So hopefully by 11:20, 11:30, they have completed their work and they can submit it online. But I allow until Tuesday at noon for students who want to go home or just want to work on it a little bit more before they submit. So they do have until noon the next day. So Tuesday passes, Wednesday we meet in class again. This time we're all together, all 200 of us go into the auditorium. I lead the class, my 4 TAs are in the room with me. And what we do now is we read an actual manuscript for the most part in the American Journal of Public Health. We don't read the whole manuscript, we talk about the introduction and the methods and the results. Again, that's Wednesday. The assignment is designed so that they can complete it by the end of class. So there isn't a lot of working outside of class. And then it is due on Thursday at noon for students who need a little more time to maybe finish up their assignment. The grading was very liberal. I told my TAs and I told the students that the TAs would be grading very liberally. I want to see effort. I want to see attempts to use these methods in the assignments. I don't really care how many decimal points your answer is at. And if you want to give me a fraction instead of a decimal, that's great. So that was the feedback that students would get regarding the assignments. Again, to emphasize here what I'm talking about, during the week from Sunday through Saturday, we met on Mondays and Wednesdays in small groups and then all at once. Projects were due the following day at noon. And then the rest of the time was for students to watch videos of the upcoming new topic so that they were ready to use it on Monday morning. I would love if students would watch the videos Monday through Thursday as well, but I doubt too many of my students were watching the videos after we got together on Monday and had a project due, but maybe somewhere as a review. To emphasize again what these American Journal of Public Health articles that I was looking for, one of the titles here is Early Childhood Lead Exposure and Academic Achievement. Again, a very big topic in Michigan right now with the Flint water crisis. There was a manuscript looking at how, again, a health policy, state cigarette taxes, how they influence disparities in maternal smoking during pregnancy. Do taxes serve a public health purpose more than just generating income for the government? And then we had a paper, a very fascinating paper, looking at surveys given to incarcerated mothers and asking them to report their levels of anxiety and conflict with their spouse and with their children and so forth. So again, on Mondays, as I said, we're going to come into our room, small groups, and they will know that they have a new assignment coming in which they're going to analyze data. And here's an example of a question in one of my homework assignments. So I said, based upon the medical expenditure panel survey data, investigators want to know if there are sex differences in the population averages of, and I've given them 4 different outcomes here: expenditures, morbidities, body mass index, and age. So again, we're at the t-test point of the semester. We've got continuous outcomes here. I've got sex, which is binary, and they should be saying in question A, right? They just saw videos on t-test, but they should be realizing that they're going to use a t-test. And again, I asked them to explain why a t-test would be appropriate. We then list null and alternative hypotheses, again, trying to hone in on those concepts of what we do with data. And then I say, using the method you stated in A, answer the investigator's question. And so here I'm going to attempt to toggle and not make a fool of myself. Oh, I think I just lost screen sharing. Said I lost screen sharing. There we go. Hopefully I'm still sharing with everybody. Here's an example of one of the data sets. This is the Medical Expenditure Panel Survey. Again, everything is in Excel, typical data set, columns of data, rows of subjects. They have a tab for the data. They have a tab for a data dictionary, so they can see what these variables mean if they're categorical and where the data came from. But I've asked them to look at sex differences in average total healthcare expenditures. So then they know that there is a data spreadsheet in Excel. There is also an analysis spreadsheet. Again, I have created myself. I don't have any add-ins or plugins for Excel. They just download a standard Excel spreadsheet. And every one of my spreadsheets starts with 2 columns where typically data will be entered. So there's a grouping variable and an outcome variable. And again, so we have an outcome here, total healthcare expenditures. They know to paste that here. And we've got an indicator for the group. They simply paste those data there. Again, my Excel spreadsheet's a little stupid and it doesn't know how to figure out what the group labels are. And so the user has to know that ahead of time, and here the group labels are 0 and 1 for men and women. But once you get those right, it gives you all the summary statistics right next to the data, and it gives you all of the output for a 2-sample t-test, p-values, confidence intervals, and so forth. So again, I wanted to design an experience in which students could see entry of data and output generating from those data without being in a statistical package and things being a little bit unclear. Whoops. So now I want to go back here, and I hope it's going to tell me that I'm still sharing. All right. So that's what they would do for about 80 minutes. And then again on Wednesday, they would come in ready to do another project with me in the room, along with these 4 TAs. And I would say, get this manuscript, look at it. And here's an example of a manuscript of violence against women in selected areas of the United States. This table 1, and I said answer questions from these data. Excuse me. So in this manuscript, they took age and they categorized it into 3 categories. They told us how many women were in each age group, and then they told us how many women said they experienced emotional abuse in each age group, physical abuse in each age group, and sexual abuse in each age group. Again, we're getting to chi-square tests now. This is somewhat looking like a contingency table. And I say using the Excel spreadsheet for chi-square tests, determine if there is a significant overall association between abuse and age, and emotional abuse. And then I ask them to repeat to try and do this again with another outcome. Now, they don't have the raw data in front of them. They don't have the indicator for each woman in this data set. But again, what I like about my data sets is that, in this case, I've just embedded in the spreadsheet, is again, over to the left here would be the 2 columns for the data. And they don't have to use those 2 columns. They can enter the summary information directly into Excel and overwrite my formulas that would be computed from data. So again, the 276 comes from the manuscript, the 837 comes from the manuscript, and the other number is simply the difference. But they can create a contingency table from a manuscript they read, get estimated proportions. I've updated the spreadsheet to compute estimated odds, again, to see how proportions lead to odds. And then we can get all the pairwise comparisons. We do discuss Bonferroni corrections in this class to talk about multiple comparisons. And then we can look at how odds ratios vary between whether it's A versus B or B versus A and so forth. Again, p-value from the chi-square test of association is all generated from Excel. There is no discussion of degrees of freedom and so forth in order to generate a p-value. Now, in this class, I have to come into class, and I realized very quickly that to walk in on Monday morning and to assume that students watched my videos and completely absorbed all of the material and are ready to use it was not a good assumption. And so we would have to walk in with sort of an example or something to get students going. And I found that on Wednesdays when I was in front of the class, all 200 of them, Poll Everywhere was a really nice tool. Again, if you're not familiar with that, this is the clicker idea, but it's all online. Students use their cell phones or a laptop. Once they log in, You can actually monitor the activity and see who responds or not. I did not want to do that. So we would walk in and I'd say, okay, folks, pull out your phones, log in, and here's a question about ANOVA. And this question was trying to see if students could figure out how 3-group comparison with ANOVA is driven by 2 groups whose means are far apart and have small standard deviations. Anyway, really nice way for students to take an attempt at a problem without having to raise their hands or be afraid that maybe they get the wrong answer. And a couple of times I had a couple of questions that I knew were tricky, and when half the class got it wrong, it was a great experience. The students were baffled, and I was thrilled, and then we came together to discuss why it was wrong. Some folks will use these as a pair and share, so they'll answer, they'll see the distribution of answers, and then they'll pair up with folks and change their answer if they feel like they now understand if they did it right or not, or wrong. Again, a very nice way to start a flipped classroom before you dive into actually doing data analysis or other homework assignments. So we would do this once a week from September through early December. I did have a midterm exam and I did have a final exam, just like in a traditional classroom. And then we always have student evaluations. And so besides the standard questions and the evaluation, I inserted 3 questions into my evals in 2018. And the first asked students to tell me how they felt about, whoops. Oh, I lost a slide. Darn it, folks, sorry. The first question actually asked if they liked the videos as part of their learning experience. And again, please don't look at the slide here. It was just over 50% of students agreed or strongly agreed with the idea. So it wasn't horrible, but it certainly wasn't wonderful. The videos were a challenge for enough students that we had to rethink about how using videos in the classroom. The second question you see in front of you asked whether the in-class exercises were useful for understanding the course topics. This was much more positive. We see a preponderance of students saying agree or strongly agree or neutral. Again, some students don't like this class, no matter what I try to do to make it interesting or useful. But I did learn that students really did enjoy the ability to work with folks in the morning with their professor and or a TA and with them so they could ask questions right away rather than struggling by themselves for an entire evening before maybe going to office hours or raising a question. And the third question, I set myself up here to see if the flipped idea was something we should continue with in this class. And again, it was a coin toss here. For every student that liked it, there was probably somebody who didn't. And there was enough of us strongly disagree here that I knew that things perhaps could be fixed. And so what did I learn? I first learned that I needed to spend a lot more time explaining to folks how this is different from maybe a class they took where it was more mathematical and maybe just throwing numbers into formulas. I'm really big on explaining concepts rather than computing numbers. And that's hard for students who got an A in the prior type of class and then are struggling with how to use the material in my class. I had to show them how to use videos appropriately. I think they all think that videos are a common part of their life, but they're not used to using them for educational purposes. The idea that you need to see an idea for 7 times before it sticks. You know, we've got a quiz and 2 assignments. That's 4 other opportunities that can be generated through the videos. I needed to explain that the videos shouldn't be watched just once at 2 times speed. They should be pausing. They should be taking notes and writing down questions as if they were in a classroom with me. My videos, unfortunately, missed some concepts that I thought were important. And even though I brought them up in the classroom when we met in person, it was very frustrating for students to not have those ideas in the videos as a resource. Students are also given transcripts of every one of my videos. And again, all those concepts weren't written out in the transcripts. So we had to fix that. Students don't like quizzes. No matter what you do, a quiz is a scary idea. Especially in this class where a quiz is used as the first point of assessment of knowledge rather than usually at the last point of assessment like it's traditionally used. But I had to stick with those, so I had to fix those a little bit. Positively, students do like working with each other, with me in the room and especially my TAs. to bounce off questions. And just, again, sometimes the question was just to see if they were doing things correctly. Most students felt Excel was enough for them. Most of these students are not going to go on to another statistics class, nor will they probably analyze their own data. So Excel seemed to work pretty well. So what did I do this past fall in the second incarnation of this class? Well, I thought I communicated much better with students about the goals of this class and how they should approach it. The very first day of class, the bar plots I showed you earlier about the quizzes and how long they took and so forth, I showed those bar plots to my second cohort of students and said, let's not create this bar plot this time around. Think about taking the quizzes maybe earlier than Sunday night at 10 o'clock. We went through a practice quiz to see what happens when you pick a wrong answer and a right answer to realize how the points are computed. I added 4 modules of R, the statistical package R, just to see if students would like those. They were very loose because of the computer lab experience we had where everything was written in front of them, and they didn't like that, so I left things a little more loose. I gave them the general syntax, but then asked them to sort of venture into R. I modified slides where things were wrong or needed to be updated. And I redid all 30 videos for this course a second time this past summer. And they are much higher quality. I'm less stiff than I was the first time around. But again, one of the challenges, if you want to do this sort of approach with your class, is talking in front of a camera in a natural, looking natural is a real challenge and a skill I don't quite have yet. I got rid of things that didn't work really well in terms of the homework assignments. And I took the quizzes and I reduced them from 10 points for each question down to 2. And although it doesn't change anything in terms of total points and the percentage of the total you get, again, that number just seemed a little more palatable to students. I did not get the complaints about the quizzes this year that I did last year. I think I fixed that nicely. But when I went and looked at the time-taking experience of the quizzes, I got a plot that looks like this. And if you remember the plot I showed you from 2018, I had a spike here out at the left, and then things dropped off to the right. This year, preponderance of the quizzes all took around 10 minutes for all of the students, with some a little bit less and some a little bit more. I don't believe that I had that much impact on students slowing down on the quizzes, but those are what the data are. So maybe I had some impact here, but I'm skeptical. The quiz taking patterns, again, the one thing I wanted to impact was to make perhaps a more uniform test taking distribution throughout the day rather than a spike in the evening. And I think I accomplished that. This is a little more uniform than it was last year. We still have folks who decide that on 8 o'clock on Monday morning they're going to take the quiz. But I think I fixed that a little bit. You know, again, I want to focus on the day. This is the day before we meet in class, Sunday. Again, push this distribution a little bit to the left. So I think I, again, imparted some wisdom for students to get them to maybe take the quizzes earlier when they're a little more awake and alive and can actually put some time in on the quiz. And maybe that's why the time, 10 o'clock at night, you're probably going to spend 2 minutes, whereas maybe 2 in the afternoon, you might spend more time. So the student feedback was much better. Again, I apologize, I didn't have the information for this on my slides. I accidentally deleted it somehow. But again, I asked the students 3 questions that I inserted into the evaluations from this past semester. And the first question said, the video lectures were a useful component for my learning. Again, the format looks a little bit different because we changed our evaluation system in Michigan, but if you add up these 2 numbers, we're around 80, just over 80% of students that agree or strongly agree about the videos. The videos are better. It was worth the extra summer. Maybe I was a little unhappy at the time, but it really did benefit student learning. I think they enjoyed the videos a lot more. I asked about the in-class exercises. Did they feel that those were useful? Again, we're at 76, just over 3/4 of students said agree or strongly agree. So again, students do like the exercises. Some of the content they had comments for me on, but the general idea of coming together in class and working as a group, I think is something that is really useful. And I think we in biostatistics are realizing the utility we have in working with our students while they're in the class with us. I'm at almost my time limit. I also asked a question about the R projects that I threw into the class this year, and I said the addition of those was useful for developing my data analysis skills. And again, 60% of students that agree or strongly disagree. That's a lot higher than if I look at the written comments that the students gave me on the evals, and I could see those comments. They're not agreeing with what they put in when they fill out the sheet here, because there were lots of unhappy comments. Students don't think in terms of syntax in this class. They're very uncomfortable with the idea of typing things into a computer that they don't quite know what they're doing. And so if I want to continue with R in this class, I'm certainly going to have to rethink how I present that. And I know there are lots of ways that there are introductions to R that already exist out there. So I don't know if I'm going to do this or not. So that's been my 2 years of experience with this class. And what's coming up for the future in terms of challenges and obstacles? Well, the first is that I'm going on sabbatical next year. And the new instructor for this class has been selected. This is not a popular class to teach in my department, honestly. It is a lot of work, right? The concepts are straightforward statistically, but it's a very diverse population. This instructor is trying to figure out, does he want to use videos? Does he want to use my videos? We're told that videos are wonderful because once they're there, everybody can use them. But we all feel that we impart our wisdom in different ways, in good ways. So do we reuse each other's videos? Does my colleague want to use Excel for data analysis? Do they want to change what I have as curriculum? Maybe they want to incorporate fair t-tests back into their curriculum. And if they want to do that, are they going to make their own videos? Those sorts of issues. I mean, as I said, there's a general apprehension in this department about videos and how they might be used in education. I think my experience has been really positive in the end, although the videos were a lot of work. So again, I've created something that I don't know if everybody will be using. There is, if you think about doing this, the time investment is, I mean, I've read this by other individuals, it is far more than I ever thought it would be in terms of designing the slides and recording the videos. What I have now is huge in terms of quality. I think they're amazing. We have graphic designers, we have a recording studio to make the videos excellent, but wow, it took a lot of time. In my class, it's large enough, perhaps those of you in the audience have smaller classes, you only have to worry about one room. I need 4 graduate students that can serve as instructors for me. They have to be able to get into a room every week, stand in front of their peers, and instruct how to do t-tests and chi-square tests and analyze data. And I've been lucky for 2 years. I've gotten 4 students both times that, with some training and practice, have done a really great job. But that may not be the case in the future. And with that, that is all the information I have to give you. I do see that there are some Q&A questions. And so I'm going to read these out loud because, again, those who want to watch this recording later won't be able to see these, but I'm going to try and go in chronological order here. All right. So I got a question at 2:15. It said, hello, I'm assuming you have a written script for every screen when you record. So I did say that. We do have, again, folks here who make a transcript of every video that I record. Some poor soul who's got to watch my videos and developed a script. Now, maybe I'm reading this wrong. I just realized, do I have a written script for the instructor when I record the videos? The answer to that is no, actually. I don't like to use scripts. I practice enough times with my slides that I know what I'm going to say, usually when the slide comes up. I often recorded a 8-minute video. I would record it 3 times sometimes, and they would splice together the best of those 3 videos. So again, I don't have a script for myself. I do it through practice. Just something to, again, to think about for the future. I am expecting now my colleague to take my videos and know what's in them. Somebody else wrote, the number of evaluation responses did not seem equal to the class size. And yep, I was expecting this to be a quantitative audience and notice that. Evaluations are not mandatory for our students. Some folks have offered pizza parties for students. I'm really big on every week walking into class and saying, I really value your opinion. I really want you to fill out the evaluation, and I get what I can. And I know it's a bias sample, but I don't have responses on the surveys from everyone. Someone gave me a suggestion again for R would be to be swirl. And like I said, I know there are lots of things out there for R to use. I'm still debating on whether R is going to be a component of this class. Whoops, I'm trying to figure out how, there we go. Okay, another question here. I'm gonna move this up so I'm not looking down. So this person said that I've done something very similar with medical students. They really didn't spend enough time with videos and came to class and wanted to spend most of the time with me explaining the same concepts as the videos. And did I have that issue? No. I didn't always give students a chance to raise their hands and ask questions. I would move right into poll everywhere. I would walk into class with an example. What I did sometimes though was I used poll everywhere offline, and I would tell students, you know, this weekend there's a poll open, and it would say, well, for chi-square tests, I don't understand the following. And they would type in their responses, and then I would come in on by Wednesday and have developed an example that tried to answer those questions. I was told that those examples were helpful for some people and not other people, but I made it very clear that I was not going to regurgitate the videos in class. And honestly, they have to work on the assignment, and they don't want to do the assignment when they go home. So they were motivated also to save class time for lecturing. I'm sorry, my alarm, someone keeps calling me. Someone wrote, how do you balance the time investment of this course with your other responsibilities as a faculty member? Can I give a new webinar on that? We have debated long and hard in this school because, as Lila said in my introduction, we also have developed an online MPH program. And so my videos that I developed for this residential class, I'm also using as a completely online experience for some other students. As I said, the investment here was great. And as my chair said, it's very difficult to realize that my colleagues are investing so much time in something that will span one line of their CV, right? My CV says I taught a class. So it's been really hard, and I don't have an answer for you. How do I balance it? I complain. Honestly, I'm not teaching this semester because of having taught these classes. I can finally sit down and write a grant that's been sitting in my head and write some papers that I haven't written. It is very difficult. And again, if you're going to do this, make sure you have some investment from the powers that be and that evaluate you. It's been very rewarding. I don't regret doing it at all. And I'm actually much more positive about this idea than I was before. But realize that you're going to put a lot more time into it than you probably thought you would. And one more question here. Someone said, did you look at other videos that have been done instead of making your own? Yes. So again, when the dean's office said, you know what, Tom, do whatever you want with this course, my idea was to use other people's videos, quite honestly, and to have students watch those. And the dean was very not in favor of that. I shouldn't say the dean, an associate dean, person in the dean's office. One, because everybody, like I said, approaches things differently. And it was the fear that I would have videos from 6 different people in the semester and students would get frustrated with seeing different faces and different explanations. Honestly, they also wanted a high quality product that came from Michigan and that was developed by me myself. So it was thought that the best thing to do would be for us to create our own videos. Again, our videos are really good. I can write on a tab, I can write on the screen, and that handwriting can be recorded. They're really nicely done. But if you're going to use someone else's videos, you are reliant upon those videos existing and connecting with everything that you value in that class. So if you're only going to use 1 or 2 videos, perhaps your best approach is to find somebody else's. But if you're going to do this for an entire class, I would recommend making your own videos. other questions beside this person who keeps calling me? So Lila, at this point, do I say sayonara, farewell, folks, or?
It looks like we still have 2 questions
Oh,
here.
did I miss 2?
Oh, there's 3 even.
Oh,
Want to
I'm
scroll
sorry,
down?
it's not scrolling.
No, that's okay. Do you see them? So it's reading is this course a prerequisite
Oh,
for
there
other
it is. Yes,
courses?
thank you. So
And
someone said, is this course a prereq for other courses? If so, how did you get buy-in from instructors of subsequent classes for your content? That's a wonderful question. So as I said, this class is mostly for students who are going to be done with statistics. They are only expected to take one, they're only required to take 1 class. Now, I think I have success stories with folks every year who say they weren't going to like statistics and liked this so much that they want to try another one. And so we have something called 502, which is happening right now. Biostatistics is 502. And it's a class, it's a general survey of lots and lots of methods. My class is a prerequisite for that class. I did meet with the faculty member who was teaching that class to explain to him what I was doing and what I was teaching. And I think the biggest obstacle is that I didn't use a computing package. And again, that's something we all seem to fall back on now in statistics when we teach, is using a statistical package. So he had to work around developing skills in that area. But otherwise, we tried to start off, I finished with simple linear regression, and he knew that he should review that, and then he could move on to multiple linear regression, knowing that they had not seen it before. Again, when I talk to students who take 502, they are pleasantly surprised. But again, out of 160 to 200 students, we're talking about 20 students. It's a very select sample of individuals. Someone asked, did you have a reading from the PDF text attached to each video concept? I'm not quite sure what that means. Well, I think maybe that means the transcripts. Hopefully that's what this person again is asking. So yes,
you had mentioned the PDF textbook.
Oh, okay. So again, that book is called Open Intro Statistics, and they're on their 4th edition now. I would call examples from that textbook as things to go through in class, because they have some really wonderful public health type examples. I didn't do much else with the textbook. I gave them recommended readings from each chapter that applied to the concepts I covered in class. They were not part of my videos, and I only used the textbook then to give them review problems for the exams. Again, that was a question on my survey at the end of the evaluations. I said, how much did you use the textbook? And the answer was to do the review problems that you gave us. Students don't read books. Textbooks are not a resource for a lot of students unless you require it. So whether I require it or not is up for grabs there. And so the very last question here says, how did you convey the concept of randomization and independence? So we talked about randomization when we, at the very beginning, about data sources, and we talked about a randomized trial. So I hope we're talking about randomization in that aspect, not like a randomization test. Try to explain to them why we randomize, and the idea of what I call these supporting variables, these things out there that we can't control for, and how they can lurk in our inference and lead us to make the wrong decision. Again, throughout the homework assignments, the easy comparisons we do with t-tests and chi-square tests, I would emphasize all the time in the class, can you think of another reason why these 2 variables might be related to each other, getting to the ideas of confounding and lack of randomization whenever it was an intervention. Independence did not come up. Again, we talked about association and not associated, but I never got into the concept of statistical independence, and whether we can talk about how, a joint distribution is the product of 2 marginals, or, the joint means is a product of the marginal means. So I try to stay away from all those concepts. It didn't seem to detract from the learning of what I thought was important in this class. Again, that's up for debate as you teach your own class.
All right. I think you've made it through the full list of questions, and there was quite a variety there.
Yeah.
Um, So I thank you again, Tom, for coming on and giving us this discussion about your experiences
Of
with the full
course.
classroom. A lot of things for folks to think about, and definitely something we've
Right.
had a lot of interest in.
Yep. And you
So
can find me on email. I'm happy to answer questions too. Trying to get this idea across to other folks. So
yeah, sounds
thanks for
great.
joining us. All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much. For those who are watching, we will be posting this webinar live. We've been recording, and so it will be available through the TSHS website. So, all
Cool.
right. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.